So I've talked to you a lot about reshoring, which is nearshoring after offshoring. So when you offshored, you send it to China or Vietnam or whatever, and now you're nearshoring it, you're bringing it close, basically Mexico. I call that reshoring. It's in a huge boom. Look at the growth in construction. Really, it just started taking off right around 2020, the pandemic. And this is interesting because it was going downhill a lot from 2015 onward, and then it just started taking off. So this, I believe, comes directly from the supply chain problems, which basically were a big wake-up call. And these factories will require integrated energy and water. No utility can keep up. And welcome, everyone, to the CEO briefing. Water is the blue gold. Thursday, February 8th. Yes, it's my birthday. Briefing number 248. Water is the people's asset. All right, let's get this party started. So first of all, I just wanted to welcome all of you and let you know that we are counting the days and hours until a very important filing is coming. And beyond that, I can say no more. But, well, I think you'll be very happy with news to come. All right, let's start with the usual scan of my Twitter feed. And let's take a look here what we got. All right. So first, we last saw each other, and we were talking about regional community banks going out of business. I was able to cover some of what's behind all this problem. Let's take a look at this little report here. We're being told that hiring is healthy. And what we see here, though, is that the growth in hiring is largely in government sectors. Government and healthcare are not inherently productive. They're taxing us. Government taxes us, of course, and healthcare taxes us to keep us healthy. Things that are trade, business services, look at manufacturing, transportation, warehousing, et cetera. So that's a picture of what's going on in this market. That should be obvious that, yes, we're hiring, but we're hiring in what you might call taxation sectors. All right. And then this is an interesting thread. A fintech for good company. What is that? Well, it's one that is not just for profit. We're not just lending money or assisting with transactions. Now, what are we saying here? Well, first of all, as centralized water infrastructure fails, more and more businesses and communities are having to take matters into their own hands, yet they lack the capital to obtain the treatment systems they need. That's where idea of becoming the very first water fintech came into play. We wanted to take care of the funding and contract management, not just for us, but for the water industry as a whole. This opens the door to incredible world-changing technologies that otherwise wouldn't be accessible to those that need them. That's a fintech for good. And that's a big reason why we do what we do, because frankly, it's hard, but we are so excited about it. And there's Twitter wishing me a happy birthday. How cute. All right, let's continue here. Jeremy Slate, who has an amazing organization that sets up podcasts, interviewed me for his iconic series. Apparently, I am an icon. And so Jeremy Ryan Slate interviewed me, and you'll be able to see more about that very soon. Good little interview. All right. Mexico City residents protest water shortage. Literally water in homes, businesses, and certain government offices for over a month. This is what happens when water infrastructure really falls apart. We think in America that we are so far away from it, but we have a real problem, right? And here, China. What the heck's going on in China? The China index has completely crashed. We think, well, some people claim that we're doing fine, but actually, I think that there will be a domino effect. We shall see. All right, report from Clayton Meeker, who's the sales manager at Progressive Water Treatment, our Dallas manufacturing organization. And they are assembling a water treatment system that includes a pod, as I call it, from Modular Water Systems. So this is what it looks like. And Progressive tends to do very large systems, and Modular Water tends to do the smaller containerized ones. So this is one that has the other in it. And it's going to a plant on the East Coast. Here's some of the components in it. Very nice. It has UV light, all kinds of interesting, fun things. So well done to Clayton Meeker for doing that project. loss of aquifer water. Many of America's critical sources of underground water are in a state of rapid and accelerating decline. More than half of the aquifers in the United States are losing water, according to research published Wednesday in Nature magazine. The collapse of underground water levels has sped up. So what does it say? We are overusing our aquifers. So overusing aquifers is a very interesting problem, because once they're gone, it takes, for example, the Ogallala Aquifer in the Midwest, which is a source of about a third of our produce nationwide, is down as much as 150 feet. Well, once it's fully down and drained, it takes us 600 years to refill it. So that's a serious problem. And that's where recycling comes in. Remember, when you decentralize water treatment, and then companies are able to do water treatment at the margins where they are, they can reuse it, fine, and then eventually they discharge it to the environment, to the groundwater, and that recharges the aquifer. So it's a very, very sustainable practice, what we're doing here. Character consists of what you do on the third and fourth tries. Isn't that the truth? Well, I like to think of us as the 16-year overnight success. So James Michener, my hat's off to you, because it's the truth. All right. Nice news in California. Very nice. We have a situation where just about all the reservoirs are above their historical level for the date. In other words, the average. Historical average is the green line. And then the gold bar is the total reservoir capacity. The blue bar is the current storage level. As you can see, California is actually doing very well. So good news. Thank you to my good friend Ian, who was briefly on the board of the blank check company that is acquiring us. And he's a good friend in LA, and he passed this on to us. All right. Oh, buying a home. Look at this. If you're buying a home for $400,000 and you have a down payment of $60,000, the difference in interest rates between 3 and 7% is a difference of what's about $351,000 difference. Not a pretty picture. So that's the problem with, of course, long-term interest. And then here we have, I don't want to read all of these to you because I want you to be in my X feed and reading all these other cool things that I don't have time to go through. But let's talk about CRE. I'd be very concerned, this thing goes, if I was a pure CRE, commercial real estate firm, or a regional bank with a lot of CRE exposure. And why is that? Because this is the thesis of this post, which is that actual inflation is very low. From the Trueflation site, we have 1.34%. So what the heck, right? Well, that's because the Bureau of Labor Statistics uses old information. So this is some very heavy stuff. This is, it's very technical, but it talks about SoFi is actually a great company, in my opinion, because they're a virtual bank, and they don't have the costs of retail branches and so forth. Societe Generale is the name of the company. All right. And then we, of course, have Janet Yellen, who is admitting that there is a problem. Yes, commercial real estate area is, shall we say, careful supervisory attention. Lord have mercy. As I say, I would not want to be in commercial real estate right now. All right. I played this last week. Home inequality is on the rise. Top 1% of households make about 5 times more than the bottom 20%. We know that. It's pretty bad news. Here's a very interesting graph that was posted by Grant Cardone. Median household income in the United States by ethnic group. And it's surprising, actually. For example, Korean Americans I would have expected to be higher. I lived in La Crescenta for a while, which is heavily Korean American, and their average income for that community was very high. But I guess overall average is impacted by immigration. So what's the number one issue for most of these people is that they are recent immigrants. However, at the very bottom, we have both Hispanics and African Americans at the low end of the totem pole. At the very high end are groups that The best thing I could say is that they're extremely cohesive as families. I think that's a good way to put it. Mutually supportive, and of course, Indian Americans are they have a very strong school system that is very competitive, and they happen to have a democracy as well, which is pretty cool. Anyway, so it's interesting. There's a story that I heard on the radio on a national public radio, which I no longer listen to since I've moved from LA, but because it used to be the drive time thing you listened to, and that is that they basically tracked Mexican kids coming into the U.S. school system, and they were uniformly more honest, more diligent, more careful, etc., than the Native Americans. After 2 years, that difference disappeared. So it's very easy for the advantages of these immigrant families to disappear because of, the big melting pot. Take a look at the percentage of population with a bachelor's degree, and that is very interesting. Indian Americans, 70%, U.S. average, 28%. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be high on the wealth. For example, Korean Americans are low on, they're below the white Americans, and yet they have more bachelor's degrees. So I don't think that's all of it. I thought I would look at that. It was rather interesting. Last week I covered this, the 50-year radioactive battery for a cell phone reactor in my pocket, and that basically is a good thing for decentralized energy. Okay. And finally, today's news that the S&P 5000 has officially hit 5,000 for the first time in history. And unfortunately, it's mostly the Magnificent Seven, the technology monopolies and duopolies, right? Amazon, et cetera. So I don't think it's that healthy, but there is a lot happening in the equity markets. What can I say? I don't think it's healthy, and I think it's a top, but I'm mostly defensive I manage a very small 401k for my wife, and I try to stay defensive. Let's put it that way. All right. Well, that is the news. This week, I sat down with my friend Jim Mathers, and we had a conversation. Now, who is Jim Mathers? Well, he actually is a motivational speaker. He speaks on a number of topics, but his background is very interesting. He came up through the submarine service as an engineer, nuclear engineering officer, and has some great stories from that. Apparently, the Russian boomers, as they called them, the missile submarines, were so loud they could detect them a half an ocean away. It's pretty wild. Anyway, he became a professional engineer, and then he also worked on the Try-to-C program. Then he started energy consulting company. What happened in the late 90s is there was a deregulation of energy such that consumers could shop their energy supplier. And this was actually very, very productive. I mean, it saved consumers hundreds of millions of dollars. And I have several friends who do this. Jim is one of them. And he has over 200,000 commercial energy customers. These are not retail. These are businesses. And some of the utilities they work with are Suez, Liberty, Direct Energy, et cetera. Okay, so that's who he is. And of course, he speaks on business management, leadership, and sales motivation to groups as large as 2,000. Very cool guy. He has a book which you can download if you go to jimmathers.com, How to Have Fun and Make More Money. And that, my friends, is a picture of the Clearwater Bridge. That I know it very well since we overlooked it when we first moved here. Let's take a look at this little interview.
The whole idea of water as a service, energy as a service, is awesome.
Yeah.
If you get the right funding on this, you can actually go in and service a very large industrial site, save them a lot of money. I've been doing this since 1998. Fail,
right?
Launch.
Well, I like the part about failing early and failing often, which is kind of my philosophy too. In part, it makes the best of a lot of learning experiences.
Well,
I meant to.
Yeah, but also if you don't make some of those mistakes, you don't learn, and as long as you don't die in the mistake, every once in a while you go, This is it. This is it, Martha, I'm coming.
This is not Call of Duty. You don't get to reset. No, that's the issue.
It's like Gran Turismo in the movie, right? He goes, no, when you crash in this one, it's a real crash. It's like, wow, that was, it's so cool because you get these kids like, oh, I can do this. Yeah, but you don't count all the times you start over. But, I failed in starting my company this time in 1999. I failed 3 times. I mean, it was like up and crash and burn. And the 4th time, and then you're like, okay, it looks really good. It's getting better. Just please send the check. Just please send the check this time. Because the failures were starting for a company that goes, we changed our mind. And they're $1 billion company, so what are you going to do?
Right.
You're a 2-man startup. You going to sue them? No. So you walk away and you get another one, and then you get another, and then you finally get a guy who goes, I love what you guys are doing. Okay, great. Brought him 150,000 customers.
So really the game is not getting the customers, it's getting
paid.
getting the sponsor, the provider.
Yeah, once you have that, who's a stable company, and then the problem is, and what other businesses like mine have found out, if you make promises, you have to deliver.
Yeah, it's a funny thing about that.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So we've delivered 5 million Resi customers in the last 25 years, and hundreds of thousands of small business customers. And now we focus mainly on that medium to large business market. So it's kind of like not really one-off shops. A lot of chains. We have one Fortune 100. We have a bunch of Fortune 500 companies. We have a lot of chains across the country. The problem is deregulation, kind of got derailed by Enron.
Yeah, that was nasty.
As we were taking off in a huge curve, Enron messes with California. And California said, okay, we're gonna re-regulate.
Right.
Enron goes bankrupt, and 27 states pull their deregulation laws off the books, and never to put them back on. So there's about 15 deregulated states. We operate in about 8 primary states that have really good deregulation laws, and we've saved customers hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's been a good run. So we're down now to 25 years later. We're dealing with very smart people. My sales guys have to be very well educated. It's not a wham bam thank you ma'am type of sale. It's really a very specific, energetic, and not just like really handling the customer's considerations. And because we do 3, 4, 5 year contracts, so we're doing contracts for energy. And once our client buys the futures for that strip of energy, you can't back out. So the cancellation fees can be $40,000, $50,000.
Wow. That's the big concern we have. We're building this water as a service project, and the biggest issue is in order for it to work, you've got to get the client to sign off on a 10 to 15 year contract.
Right.
Fine, if he bails, but the idea is that they'll stick around because you're putting in a $500,000, $1 million piece of equipment on site.
And can you take it out?
Yes,
okay,
you can.
And do you have to lease the piece of land that it's sitting on so they can't stop you from taking it out?
Part of it is that you retain repossession rights.
Okay, good.
That's part of the deal. So just to back up a little bit, there's been a decentralization trend for several years now.
Yes.
As you know from energy, it's happening much more quietly in water. The reason is that the utilities are overwhelmed.
Yeah.
They can't handle the business. They're underfunded. They're trying to raise water rates, but then that means people stop paying bills. That doesn't work very well. Water and sewage rates are rising faster than inflation of college tuition or healthcare.
Yeah.
It's that bad.
Our house, I think we've quadrupled. It used to be a bill that you didn't even think about.
Right, I know.
Right, water and sewer, come on. No, now we're going, wow. And my wife says, you need to go make more money.
Well, but think about it. Your water bill is not that much higher than a poor person's. You're using about the same amount of water, right? So think about the poor person. For them, the percentage of their pay is ridiculous.
Oh, I know.
So what's going on with that? Well, basically, the utilities are trying to fund themselves because nobody's funding them. They are running negative about one Ukraine war per year, $100 billion. In the United States, it's a $100 billion unmet requirement for water treatment and water infrastructure. They're not getting the funding. The big $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill allocated 1/2000th of it to water.
Really?
55 billion.
And you think about all those wastewater treatment plants. I mean, they're huge. You drive past, every once in a while you get lucky enough to drive past one, but they're massive.
The mistake that was made is that back in the 50s, when everything was being centralized, earlier than that even, they were like, oh, let's send all the dirty water to one place.
Yeah.
But the problem is you overwhelm that one place. Mm-hmm. It's just like mainframes. I'm old enough, you're very young, but I'm old enough to remember waiting in line for mainframe time.
Dude, I went to the Naval Academy in 1979. The building that held the computer, first of all, had one door, no one could go in it. Nice. And we had little cracks that we would slide those little, punch cards through. And you'd wait to find out if you failed or not. So that's 1979. So all right. I know I look younger than I really am.
Well, you have the experience of a very old man, and that's a good thing, I think. As long as you got to get the experience without going into apathy. Basically, that's the key.
But can you imagine being on a submarine where you have computers that are controlling the reactor? So if there's a problem, it shuts the reactor down automatically. Well, each of those little carbon rods that shuts the reactor down had not one computer, but two. Each computer was 6 foot tall, 3 feet deep, 2 feet wide, and had transistor tubes in it.
Nice.
And it had like 14 motherboards. And there was 2 for each rod, just in case one failed.
I love it.
So and we had cold air flowing down in the engine room on top of these because it had to be in the engine room. And we literally, I look at it today and I go, my iPhone can run a nuclear submarine.
Oh, several trillion instructions per second, yeah.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It's crazy. So, but the thing, even with energy right now, the reason I asked about leasing the property, because when you bring in a 1 gigawatt natural gas generator and you put it on the property of the company, they're bringing them in on like semi-truck trailers, parking it, they build a structure around it, hook up to the system, provide all the power, and if they don't pay, and it's energy as a service, slightly less than the utility, but a fixed price based on natural gas, saves them a lot of money. But if they decide not to pay, or worse, they go out of business, they have to have the right to go in and take those trailer trucks out, because you could have 2 or 3 trailer trucks with 3 gigawatts of power. For big companies, it's really the best solution, because now you're not dependent on Duke going down. I mean, we were without power for a whole week a couple of years ago, and so we're right now we're getting solar roof, we're getting natural gas generator and a battery backup, but that'll probably be, because I know so many different vendors, we'll probably just own it ourselves, just because it makes my building more valuable. And I don't have to worry about someone to come to take it away, just if you don't make a monthly payment. But
well, this is really important to know. I mean, we're designing this program, and these are the early days for water as a service. Now, we have competitors, for example, 7 Seas, which is funded by Morgan Stanley Capital Partners. They do islands.
Oh, to do several different customers, off-takers?
No, they'll be the private utility for an island.
Oh, an island out in, yeah, okay, yeah.
So
that's where they're testing all this, by the way. In Bahamas, they're paying 75 cents a kilowatt hour. 50 to 75 cents.
Oh, yeah, Hawaii is also high.
Yeah, because they're islands.
Yeah.
Where's the natural gas pipeline? I mean, I don't care what everybody says.
Don't they have like wave action energy or something?
Yeah, they do. I don't know how many people are using that. I mean, it's a great idea because it's energy. The whole idea of water as a service, energy as a service is awesome. Yeah. Because you can go in and you make it, and with the right funding, and this is a great investment, by the way. If you get the right funding on this, you can actually go in and service a very large industrial site, save them a lot of money off of what they're paying to be on the city's wastewater treatment system, correct?
Exactly. So how it happened is very interesting, because we didn't start with water as a service. It was kind of an outgrowth of what we were doing. Back in 2015, 2016, I was sort of the early prophet of decentralized water. And everybody's like, huh, what? What do you mean? And nobody cared. But, in fact, recently, a Water Trade, Water Online, which is the biggest one, published an article on decentralized water is great. And I pointed them to the same article that I wrote 7 years ago in the same trade about decentralized water. Guys, I wrote that same thing. But, such a thing as being too early.
Yeah.
But the good news is you get good, right? Being too early is good, because if you can survive it, we have very good investors and we take good care of them. As a result, you can be there in the space kind of almost idling.
Right.
And then when it takes off, you're there.
But the important point is idling, but learning. The lessons that you learn at the beginning,
It's a microcosm, really.
Yes.
Exactly. So what we're doing in the early days was we weren't trying to do the water as a service. We were just doing decentralized. So for example, you've got a trailer park. Trailer parks are a huge audience for us because, most trailer parks, how they take care of their waste, it goes into a pond. And that's it.
Oh my God.
There's a green pond in the back. Green algae. Yeah, baby. Anyway, now the regulators are saying, no, you can't have that. And so this is one of the biggest risks that trailer park operators face, which is the wastewater treatment. One client that we put in one of our pods in place for, she had to give up half the equity in her trailer park to pay for that.
Wow.
That's how bad it was. Either that or 100%. They were literally, she was going to be shut down. And so she would have been a great candidate had we come up with that at the time.
Without giving up equity.
Because she just pays as a service. No big, I don't need that. I don't need equity in a trailer park. I'm good. I'm fine. I'll stay in the water business. Thank you very much. Although you're starting to give me an idea here. You were talking about owning your own building. Like, interesting. But the idea here is this. First of all, without talking about water as a service, is industry and agriculture represents 90% of all water usage. Wow. And the water utility is overwhelmed. So why not take industry and agriculture off the grid?
Right.
Let them do their own thing. Because it makes sense. Back in the day, the early part of the 20th century, centralize everything. The idea is you would then concentrate expertise and resources. The problem with that is growth. You outgrow the centralized system and you end up with an overload, which is what we got today in water.
Yeah.
So the solution is decentralize. The good news is now the expertise exists at the edges. The downscaled systems exist. So these pods, these water systems in a box, we call them. So
it's a great idea, by the way.
I didn't come up with it. What happened was we were trying to acquire companies. This is back in 2015, 2016. We came across a company called Aptech that this guru, Dan Early, was basically the co-owner of. And we were going to buy his company. Well, come 2018, it wasn't happening. He comes to us, he goes, well, my company shut down. You want to hire me? I'm like,
So you didn't have to buy him.
No, it was perfect. So he comes on board. Now, water sales move about as fast as real estate sales, meaning very slowly, right? Like it took forever. So we started him in 2018. We deficit funded him all the way till 2021. We turned profitable, right? So right through the pandemic, and finally 2021 was profitable, and then he started doubling year over year. Boom, 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 right? He's just like that, crazy. Because Dan was smart enough to think about a standardized product, right? You want the containerized product, there's only 3 sizes, 5,000, 10,000, or 15,000 gallons per day. Which do you want? Oh, you want 30? Well, you'll get 2 15s.
That's right. That's right.
Right? That's how it works.
Same with energy.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
And so he's dramatically standardized it. He's basically turning into just flapjacks, just boom, 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 right? And we have another division that does large customized systems like power plants and so forth. That's their specialty. Unfortunately, it's not as scalable. In our forecasts, Modular Water, Dan Early's company, is going to way outgrow Progressive Water,
right?
Because of the dynamics of it.
But isn't that the basis of every single successful company, that when you can supply a demand, and then if you can do it at a profit, so you can continue, because people, well, why don't you just do it for free? Well, then because no one can afford to give it to you. But if you can do it, if you can scale it at a profit and it's scalable up, because like every company starts off like this, they're on the bottom wondering if they're going to live, and then they hit this peak where they just go up.
Yeah.
And at that point, it just becomes management's greatest thing is how do I keep it going until you hit that peak growth where you're just kind of flatten out a little bit. But if you don't have it scalable, and every single one has to be custom engineered.
Forget about it.
Right, it's time.
It's over.
Yeah.
And the other thing that happens is you have very long sales cycle, like about a 2-year sales cycle. Well, that eats up staff time, it eats up margin big time. So you shorten that as well. Here's where we went with it. First of all, we had built the custom company, great. We actually bought it and it does great. But again, it only has limited upside, but it's a great engineering center for us.
Right.
Number 2 is Modular Water, which is growing fast, great. Then along came the pandemic. And this week in 2020, literally the first week of February was when the effect from Wuhan being closed for a month started showing up in the price of crude,
right,
which crashed. And Ken Berenger and I were the co-creators of this. We looked at each other and went, oh my gosh, nobody's going to have any capital. We didn't realize there was going to be a giant giveaway of trillions of dollars. That hadn't happened yet. So it's, whoa, it's going to be a huge capital problem, hard money, all that stuff. Because normally that's what would happen. Contraction, right?
Yes.
So we said, well, why don't we, and out of that came the idea of customers not paying for their machine and just staying on the meter. They're on the meter already. They don't own that central utility. Now they're going to get a unit on their site.
It diverts, right?
It diverts, yeah.
From the meter, away from the meter.
Well, it's our meter now.
Yeah, okay.
It's no longer the city meter, it's our company meter. And so doing that as a service, and that was an amazing concept, which matured into what we call today water on demand.
Right.
It operates just like a master limited partnership for oil and gas, meaning that it's a bucket of, a bundle of properties, pump stations and water treatment sites and you name it. It gets funded by investors and they get a royalty. You see, master limited partnerships have a huge tax advantage, which we don't have. Energy got this giant tax credit, right? We don't have that. So what do we do instead? We give giant equity rewards in my public company and also in Water on Demand itself. But then it turned into a big deal because we got that company on the road to the NASDAQ.
Right.
Now, what's great about that is that we combined Progressive Water, the engineering company, Modular Water, the pod company, and this new concept, Water on Demand, which doesn't have a single deal, but it has capital.
Right.
We merged them, and that's what we made the target. My mother company, OriginClear, we held back. Why? It's the incubator.
Oh, right, right.
It's the parent. So now Water on Demand is our child, sending our child off to college. That we're paying big bills, because it's Harvard, okay? So we're paying the big bills. And we are currently the majority owner of Water on Demand. And even after the merger, we'll be probably the largest single owner, depending what happens. But the good news is now those units have real capital to work with.
Right.
So we don't know how much it's going to be. It is what it is. But I don't care. Why? It's the NASDAQ, stupid. You can if you make it on the NASDAQ, you can raise money no matter what.
Right.
It's fascinating because Jim is doing exactly in energy what we are doing in water. In other words, he is doing these, things that come in on a semi, plug them in, and he's generating up to 3 gigawatts. These are some big setups. But they're, if the customer stops paying, and it's tied to the cost of natural gas and so forth. So it's almost identical business model, which makes it really fascinating, I think. All right, let's see now. In fact, Mr. Jim Mathers has been kind enough to join us. He's on his phone. The main man.
Hey, nice to see you again.
Yes. And, it's funny because we were nodding acquaintances for the longest time. And all of a sudden, all this quality time, we're really getting to know each other. But it struck me watching that clip. It really struck me how very similar your business model is to ours. You're more on the relationship management side, right? You're not actually trying to deliver the energy. We're doing it all. But of course, it's starting smaller. So, but so much of what you've learned are lessons that we have to keep in mind, like that repossession right.
I'll tell you, it's interesting because when you're selling a product and it's not your product, for us, we've always been the broker. For 26 years, I've been a broker for commercials to get electricity and natural gas in deregulated states. But, in the last 3 or 4 years, we really have been working with microgrid designers So we work with about 3 different companies that can literally put a truck on a property, bring you a megawatt of power, take you off the grid if you want, leave the grid connected for a backup.
Mhm.
And it's exciting, but it's a 2-year sale. It's custom, it's a new idea. But I tell you, when a plant starts losing $10 million a day because the utility went down, they start looking at this seriously, because energy as a service is still, it's a new concept, even though it's several years old.
Well, it's interesting what you say, because in water, I was just watching, I was going to excerpt it today, but Joe Rogan was with Aaron Rodgers, the football star, and they were just and they were getting into what happens if there's an interruption in basic services for the population. Things go south really fast. And in a way, you could say that this concept that we're developing of decentralized water is one that would be much more robust in the event of emergencies.
Right.
Just like what you're talking about with energy, that these businesses can maintain their uptime because they control their own site. Very similarly, we can make sure that businesses and agriculture retain their independence. Now, currently, the incoming water is still from the city. Why? Because it's easy. But they can always draw from a well. I mean, that possibility exists, right?
Right.
What we've done for them is taking care of the wastewater, that's the heavy lift. That's the hard work, because these industrial clients have toxins, right? Lots of toxins. Agriculture, they got the Roundup, the glyphosate, they got the nitrogen and phosphorus. They got a lot of bad stuff too. So we have to treat this stuff. A couple weeks ago, I had a report on the state of rivers in America has not improved in the last 5 years. Stayed the same. Meaning they're all green with algae because of all the nitrogen and phosphorus. Well, we got to change that. So this is part of the mission, in my opinion. So I wanted to quickly cover a couple comments that were really good here in chats. Linda Rutan says, Keith, her husband, is a day trader and says that a few tech companies shouldering all the gains in stock markets is very dangerous. He's right, and maybe catastrophic. Tangible assets like water that are critical for everyday life is a definite way to go. That was a comment I was going through talking about how the magnificent S&P 500 is looking great, but when you deduct the Magnificent Seven, it's terrible.
Right.
It's on its way down. Anyway, and Jay Miller says, great conversation. Thank you. So what I'd like to do actually is bring in the other mavens, the Mavericks. These are the crazy guys I work with. And we have the freewheeling discussion. And Jim is our guest. Wasn't that an interesting discussion we had?
So we'll be nice to him.
Why? What?
First time only. You get a pass on the first round. That's it.
Jesus. Ben, I'm losing my faith in your Long Island background.
My old age. I'm getting soft in my old age. I got it. Nice to see you again, Jim. How you doing?
Nice to see you too.
Nice to meet you, Jim.
So it was interesting. So when Jim was talking about the model, I just kept going, And I guess, if you want to be immodest, you would say that there really are no original ideas. Generally, what you do is you take really pieces of other people's good ideas and you kind of formulate them to fit your worldview, Jim. So what you did, and you mentioned overcoming certain issues like repossession stuff. It was the first thing we thought about. Because when we originally wanted it, our first thought was, we'll tie it to real estate. And they were like, no, that's a terrible idea, right? Because then you have trust deeds you have to fight with, and who owns it and all that other stuff. So, treating it like an equipment, kind of a big, like an industrial equipment placement, right? If you use a land mover, if you lease these land movers at $1,000 a month to do major construction projects, and you don't pay the lease, you're going to show up one day at the yard, the chain will be cut, the fence will be open, and that big old 100-ton truck will simply be gone. You have no recourse.
That's right.
You should have paid the bill. So that became the model, treating this as like industrial equipment. What?
Rent-a-center.
Rent-a-center, right. Rent-a-center, exactly. Yeah. So, but it was it's wonderful to hear. And Jim, and I'm sure you've discussed this with your sales guys. Selling a new concept, the hardest part is getting other people to wrap their head around the new paradigm.
Right.
So wait, run that by me again. Run that by me again. And I've often said that while I donated 6 figures to cryptocurrency last year on some hot tips that Riggs gave me. I won't blame him. It was my money. I did donate some to a Russian hacker. All right. So that was a big chunk. Anyway.
I'm not Russian. I'm not Russian.
No, I get it. So, but the thing I owe cryptocurrency, a huge debt of gratitude is they spent an enormous amount of exposure and energy and time and money allowing people to understand what decentralization was. Nobody knew what decentralized was.
Right.
But it was decentralized currency, decentralized. So the public markets and the investment public understood the safety behind decentralization, right? You want to be off the Fed. You want to be you want to have your own portable currency, things like that. So when we, talked about this and it was that oh crap moment when COVID hit, first tying it to real estate. And then we just said, look, this is we're decentralizing. We're creating a micro utility. Now, I know I've heard Dan Early use that term a lot. I don't know if I heard it from him or he heard it from me or whatever, but Dan's ability as an engineer to communicate in a colloquial way to people who aren't engineers is his superpower. Because if you've talked to engineers, everyone goes, huh? Yeah. And Dan,
I admit I'm a nuclear engineer. I'm sorry.
But I'm saying, so when you start talking shop, the average layperson is going to go, whoa, you lost me at hello. Dan is able to colloquialize this in a way that a layperson finds digestible. And that has been a tremendous boon for me because I was able to kind of work with that. But decentralization and cryptocurrency and the energy they brought to making people understand that, I think helped translate what we do very rapidly. And I'm sure, your guys do the same thing. A lot of other things I hear when I'm describing it. So I described the model today to a guy and he goes, well, that's like solar. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly like solar. The solar city model, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
So again, these are, and I wasn't thinking of solar when Riggs and I developed this. We weren't going, let's do it like solar. We realized after we came up with the idea, we went, oh, that's like solar. So in other words, truth seems to find their own silo and operate in different areas, right? You found yours, and it's frighteningly similar to what we do, because you know what? Truth is truth.
That's exactly.
In fact, one of our iterations was called Investor Water, and that was where investors would own directly the piece of water equipment, right?
Right.
And what we ran into was the fact that the regulations on asset ownership vary so widely state by state that it became this huge fragmentation issue. We just couldn't do it. And this is why I believe master limited partnerships in oil and gas are a bucket or a bundle of properties, because it kind of puts it all in one package and it makes it investable. And furthermore, if one of those fails for some reason, something like that, this is the whole idea of bundling mortgages.
Right. You don't want to own the well that failed.
Yeah.
Everyone else is making money and you're getting crushed, right? So it's that mutual fund mentality.
There was a lot of evolution that went into this. It took us a long time, but by November 2020, August 2021, we were rolling, and by November we were raising money for it. And as I told you, Jim, we're $8 million into a $20 million raise for the water on demand projects that we are playing.
Actually, we're closer to 10.
I blinked. I'm sorry, I blinked. Ken, my God, Ken and his people, they are machines. I have to mute their Slack channel. Like, please, God, stop. I don't want to see this anymore. Oh, Lord. I walk away for 20 minutes and then come back and there's like 25 posts. I'm like, okay, better you than me.
Right.
Well, see what I was telling Riggs is that we're like a secret weapon that no one knows about yet because we already know how to sell your product. We already have, 25,000 customers, commercial customers that we can start marketing the idea to.
Yeah.
Even just because we always market other things besides just plain old electricity and gas. It's like, we have chocolate and vanilla. We've made profit every year for 26 years. But we showing these other cool things, like the home generators and so we can hook up solar. We can take you off the grid if we have to, whether you're a house or you're a business, and we focus on business only. So for this, it's like, I was telling Riggs, it's like, we're like that ace in your back pocket, because one of the things as you guys start ramping this up, we can actually contact thousands and thousands of business owners and hopefully take some of that time out of the sales process too.
Right. And you would almost act like a rather than because their normal interface right now a lot of times is with the engineer, like the consulting engineer. You would be more like the sales reps.
And we would educate the decision maker who tells the engineers what to do, right, why it's a good idea, and they go, okay, well, let me check with my engineer. Sure. And then you can talk to our engineer.
Right. And we end up as basis of design right at the outset.
Right. Because we do all this proprietary stuff. So, because what we found, Jim, was that the model of selling systems as widgets was great, but we were talking to people who had already fixed their finance problems.
Right.
They were putting it out to bid. They're like, well, I want to buy a unit. I don't need this water as a service thing. What we're now learning is we have to go earlier before people have solved their problem.
Right.
And as I told you this week, when we got together, we have a project that is developing in the trailer park space that is going to be a perfect pilot for us. So we get past this pilot, and that will be the shakedown cruise. I had a friend when I was at sea who'd been in the Navy. He said, it's not a good shakedown cruise if 6 people don't die. So that's the surface fleet. I know that the submarine corps is
no submarines. That's the worst time for a submarine is the shakedown cruise after 2 years in the shipyard, which I did. Luckily for me, my time in service ended. The captain begged me to stay because I was the only officer who had ever driven the Flying Fish at sea 2 years earlier, and I said, I'm sorry, Captain. I got my get out of jail free card. It's in my hand. I'm not staying to risk not coming back up. So good luck.
What's the Flying Fish?
That was a nuclear submarine. It was prior to the Seawolf class. It was one of 2 ultra top secret submarines that we were coded, and we were so quiet nobody could find us, not even our own guys.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Ron Williams says, hello, Jim, and thank you for your service.
My pleasure.
And with that, I think we're going to wrap it up, but I think this is very, very exciting. As I say, we're going to do this little pilot. We're working with this partner that we're about to hopefully sign a strategic partnership with and do this very interesting trailer park project that I'll speak more about.
And talk about a customer sector that needs it most. These are the poorest rich people in the world. I mean, they've got millions of dollars of property, but their margins are so narrow on these mobile home parks that you heard about the one woman who had to sell 60% of her property just to put a system in, right? So this is a perfect test case because these people are not rolling in money. And this is a very easy transition for them.
Yeah, it's kind of like owning a laundromat. Your margins are very thin.
Right.
All right. So we get past that, Jim, and I look forward to exploring with you and Martino, your marketing guy, the whole idea of doing a 2 CEOs podcast. That should be fun.
That would be fun. Thanks a lot.
It'll be great. Jim, thank you so much for joining. It's a pleasure to have you here on my birthday. And AJ, you didn't get a word in edgewise. We just were like cramming it in.
Listen, sometimes you just got to take it in. Sometimes you just have to take it in. It's fine.
Would you like to part with a few words, AJ? I have a couple of words. AJ, you could join me. Ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Riggs. Happy birthday to
you.
you.
I love it because Zoom has everybody on a different timeline.
It was like Bohemian
Coming in.
Rhapsody. I see a little silhouette, madam. Scaramouche, gotta do the fandango. Right.
That's right.
Bob Bruce, thank you. Ron Williams, thank you. Linda Rutan, thank you. Jay Miller, thank you. Thank you. Victoria Vietes. I hope I said that right. Thank you all. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to some really great news. Janet says, Janet Winkleman. Hi, Janet.
Hi, Janet.
Been a while. Fellow Aquarian, mine was 3 days ago. Have a great year. Thank you, and happy belated birthday to you, Janet. And then Jean Tully, happy birthday. James Wright, happy anniversary. Anniversary. Anniversary, well, anniversaire.
The anniversary of your birth.
French say anniversaire, so I totally understand that. And we have David Weingart, happy birthday. You guys are awesome. And with that, I'm going to thank you all, and we'll be tuning out.
Oh, and we want to welcome David to the OriginClear family.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
That's David from today. Hi, David.
Welcome.
David and I are going to do an interview. You're going to have a nice. We're going to have a nice interview with David in a couple days.
Awesome. There's just so much good stuff happening on, like, Jim, the kind of opportunity that you guys are talking about, and the fact that there's continuing to be synergies in broader markets is huge. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the idea of having a Two CEOs podcast. I think there's gold in them hills, but just overall for the good,
I just want the blooper reel.
Yeah, for the good of everyone here. We've got so many good things going on. I don't know if you touched on it today or not, but for those that don't know, we do have a crowdfunding offer coming soon, super soon. So keep your guys glued to your emails for that. Make sure that you have got us whitelisted so that you're getting all of that communication. For everyone that hasn't had a chance to participate in the accredited offering, this is your time to shine. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited for guys like David who are coming on board. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Really, the sky's the limit for what we're going to do and the impact we can make. So there's my words.
Winkleman has come back on board. I mean, all kinds of wonderful things are happening.
Yes. We
love you guys deeply. And Linda says, all of you have cool haircuts. I have the best one. I have the best one.
You have a hair shine.
Thanks to Linda.
All right. So really fast, everyone, you will get, when this thing closes, there'll be an invitation to fill out the Zoom survey. Please fill it out. As I say every week, we treasure it and we study it. We pick it apart carefully. And also you can message us. Marcus Walker says, LOL. And with that, I'm going to LOL my way out of here. Thank you all.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Happy birthday. See you guys.
It was a wonderful birthday event. Thank you.